I'm being tempted every day during this season, because after my fast, God didn't just come through like that. It took a little minute because God worked in his perfect time. And so it looked like he's slow to us, but he's on time. And so while I'm waiting on God's perfect timing, I'm being tempted to drink. I'm being tempted to smoke. And I'm sitting up here trying to serve God. And you can see how it would make me feel like trapped. He wanted me to be that older Bria, but I'm like, I can't give you that because she's dead. Hello and welcome back to Soft Heart Revelation. Today we will be going into the third part of my testimony. Just to pick back up where I left off, I had got evicted from my apartment officially. I was staying with him on and off because sometimes I would, leave because we got into it, or, it would always be something, wrong on my end where I felt like I needed to leave. And so I was staying with him on and off. And eventually I got pregnant. And it was my idea to have the baby. I was willing to have a baby outside of wedlock. At that time, I didn't know that I was going against God's law. And it's amazing that we can know about God all our life, but know nothing about his word, know nothing about his personality, his characteristics. We don't know how he feels about sin. And so we go around speaking on God's name all the time, but meanwhile our hearts are far from him because we don't even know what our own God requires of us. So I wanted to have this man's baby, and the whole time I'm idolizing him by rebelling against God. I idolized him so much that I was willing to change my body. I was willing to give up my freedom. I was willing to just sell my whole soul to him, because that's what I did. That selling your soul is not what people think it is. It's going against God to the point of no return mentally. And so that's what I did. I got pregnant, and I stayed with him in the same house. I think I referred to it a few times in my other testimonies, but we were living in a rooming house. And so there were other people living in this rooming house. We were in this rooming house a very long time. The drugs still kept happening. The alcohol kept happening. We were just still living that rebellious lifestyle because I had not made up my mind what I wanted. We just going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. It was never really just truly cemented that we were going to be together in my heart, truthfully, because I was always double-minded with him. I was always, 1 minute, it was like that the entire relationship. 1 minute I would leave him and I come back. Leave, come back, leave, come back, leave, come back, leave, come back. Like, I was just double-minded in this relationship the whole time. And so I stayed divided with him because something in my soul was just yearning for something else. And I didn't know I was yearning for God. One particular moment we got in an argument about something, and it was petty. I don't even know what in the world it was about. I can't remember. But we got in an argument, and I left that day, and I was pregnant. I think I was in the early part of my pregnancy, and I left, and I was bouncing from house to house to house during this season. So I was at my mama's house one season. I was at my sister's house one season. I was at the guy friend's house one season. So I was just getting tossed around like a hot potato between everybody else. Need some water. I was getting so I'm getting tossed around from house to house because of my foolishness. And so, oh God, so I'm still struggling against the current at this time, and I'm double-minded. That's all I can just really say, y'all. I was double-minded because I kept going back to him, kept getting mad at him, kept leaving him, kept coming back. It was just, it was so chaotic. It was just crazy. I can't even believe it. But this whole time I'm going back and forth with myself about whether or not we're going to be together. That's really what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to figure out, is I'm finna take this man seriously? Am I really finna be with him or not? One particular time, I was staying with my mom, and I got upset with her about something that happened, a conversation that happened between us. She had said something to me, and I got offended. And I ended up calling him and I was like, can I come over there? I'm like just so upset. I'm so frustrated. Like, I don't even want to be here no more. I'm finna leave. And so he got me an Uber and, you know, I went over there and I'm thinking I'm being rescued, you know, from whatever threat I thought my mama was. So I end up going over there and I'm pregnant. I am probably about 6 months, five or 6 months pregnant at this point. And when I go over, so he was staying with his mom, right? And I'm pregnant. And while I'm over there, I'm telling you, I went over there for probably about 2 or 3 days. He had a gun. And his brother came over there. His mom and his brother got into it. So there was her son. They got into a big argument. And long story short, she ended up shooting at him. She shot at him. She shot at him in her house while I was pregnant with his child. So my son's grandmother fired a gun in the house while he was still in my belly. While her grandson was still in my belly, she shot a gun in the house at her own son. At that moment, I won't say that was the straw that broke the camel's back, because I was approaching that point where I was finna be like, okay, this is the last straw. You know what I'm saying? This is the last straw. There was one of the last straws for me, or so I thought. But you know, God, he has a perfect purpose and a perfect plan for the way he aligned everything. So I won't just completely just cast myself off as foolish, because I needed to see all of this. Everything needed to unfold for me to eventually make up my mind. So I'm going through so many different emotions. I'm like, for one, let me just tell y'all, I was like, man, y'all don't care nothing about me or this baby. For one, y'all don't care nothing about y'all self to be running around here acting like this. First of all, who shoot a gun in their own house? What, you trying to put a hole in the floor, the wall, the ceiling? What you trying to do? Second of all, really, first of all, who shoot a gun in the house at their son? Show blood, bro. Like, and who shoot a son in the house when a baby in there with your unborn grandchild in her belly? Like, who do that? So, you know, I'm sorry, y'all. I'm processing this right now. Because I really can't even believe some of the stuff I even let myself go through. I really can't even believe it. And I can't even believe I got so much consideration for folks. But all they can do is just point the finger at me like I'm crazy for wanting better for myself. For wanting better for myself. And you think I'm supposed to be okay with that? We supposed to just skate past that. Like that didn't happen. Anyway, she shoots the gun in the house. But prior to that, they get him and his brothers get shot at the corner store that they ain't had no, that so-called ain't had no business being at. And he comes back to the house after the shootout. And this was a day prior to his mama shooting the gun in the house at her own son with my baby in my belly. That loud tail gun. Anyway, they come back hollering about, oh, man, somebody that shot at us, did. And man, to be honest, I'm thinking the whole time, and I slick kind of went off a little bit. I'm like, man, y'all did something. Because ain't nobody just finna be shooting at y'all for no reason. Ain't nobody got no target on y'all back for no reason. The book of Proverbs says that the wicked flees when there is no one even running after them. So if somebody actually running after you, what that mean? You're not innocent. And so they come back to the house in an uproar about whatever just happened. So I'm thinking to myself, okay, my baby is my child in my belly, in my womb. And I'm sitting up here around all this chaos. But ain't nobody got no wisdom. Ain't nobody got no understanding. No one has any kind of common sense. No good sense to be able to be like, okay, everybody just chill out. But they come back and the dude that I was with take it upon himself to use the shootout as an excuse not to go to work. And I got a baby in my belly. So not only are y'all playing the victim about what just happened to y'all, but on top of that, you gonna sit your butt here and say you finna lay down and go to sleep when you need to take care of your child. and go to work and make some dough for your child and the woman you claim you're trying to marry. But you know, I was made to look crazy again for that, for me getting upset at that. I was made to look like, you know, I was the problem. I was made to look like I was just tripping. I'm always tripping. And I ain't got no hard feelings towards him or his family. But I'm really forced to relive those moments as I tell my testimony, because I have been through a lot, man. Like, we all have. And by the grace of God, either we come out, or by the judgment of God, we experience judgment. By either death or death in this life from the poor decisions we make to stay in situations God clearly telling us to get out of. So I'm made to look like I'm the crazy one after all this didn't happen, man. I leave. I left the next day. I was like, man, you're not finna sit here and keep stringing me along thinking you finna do right this time and go to work and stop playing these childish games. But, you know, the joke's on me for trying to change somebody. Man, I should have just, you know, let him tell me who he was with his actions and listen. I didn't want to listen. And so I leave the next day. And he calling me, blowing my phone up as usual, you know, trying to rationalize the unrationalizable, if that's even a word. I'm going to make it one. Trying to rationalize what shouldn't even be rationalized. Trying to make evil not look like evil. Trying to make his mistakes look like lesser mistakes. But nevertheless, they're mistakes. So he calls me, blowing up my phone. I'm back at my mama's house. And I'm just like, I'm talking about, the way I went off on him that day, he knew I was reaching my ropes in, or he should have known that I was reaching my ropes in, because I cussed him out so bad. I was so mean, because I'm not gonna say that I should, because you don't, some stuff you just don't say. I don't care. You ain't never in the right if you say certain things. But because I wasn't serious about God at that point, man, anything was gonna go. I'm cussing him out. I'm going off. And I'm like, I'm just appalled. Because I'm already pregnant at this point. I'm sitting up here leaning on false hope that we gonna be okay, that we finally gonna be able to stop struggling and we gonna have somewhere to be. Fast forward. After this, you know, I'm still just distant from him because of everything that happened. And so after me being distant, of course, I'm still in love with him. And so I don't want to let him go. Like, I really don't want to let him go. And I feel like, man, God really screaming at me like, leave, evacuate. But I'm just still like, nah, God, I ain't ready to let go. I'm not ready to let go. So I just wanted what I wanted. And so I met the other guy that came and picked me up from where I had the wreck at, which is something I spoke on in my second testimony. If you want to watch, that's going to be up to speed on this one. I'm at his house and I'm just in hideout mode. I'm in hideout. Don't nobody know where I'm at. He don't know where I'm at. And I ain't got to tell nobody where I'm at. Because quite frankly, man, y'all done traumatized me enough. What else I owe you? My soul? What? I done already gave that. So, I mean, I'm at his house and I'm just going through the motions. I'm praying. And during this time, man, I fasted like 3 days just on liquid. Really, I did a water fast and I was pregnant at this time. And so I ain't care about, God wasn't gonna let me die, because he was calling me on one anyway. He wanted me to get up out of there anyway. And so I went on a 3-day fast to seek God's answer for me. I wanted to know what he, even though it was already plain as day that I should have not been in this situation. But, you know, sometimes sin can blind you that bad. If you sin long enough, man, you ain't gonna know the basics. You ain't even gonna know the obvious stuff that's right in front of you. Eventually, because my hope was so tied up in us building a family. My hope was tied up, not in God, but my hope was tied up in us being, me and my baby being taken care of by the guy. Like, my hope was tied up in it. And so I just was holding on to that hope for dear life. The way we supposed to hold on to God, you know, I was holding on to this relationship with him. And so I gave him one condition. And he was, I was going off on him through email, everything. It was just crazy. But to prevent all this rambling on, I gave him one condition of becoming a true Christian. God, what did I do? I'm trying to make somebody a Christian, trying to mold somebody into being a man of God or a woman of God. Don't ever do that. Don't do that. Don't do that. Because, man, you got to let people find God for themselves. You have to let people find God for themselves. That was a big no-no. And I didn't know at the time that I was being foolish and naive, giving him this condition. Man, that's the biggest condition you can ever give somebody. You barely getting there yourself. So I give him this condition, man. You got to take God seriously. It ain't finna be no more drinking. You got to stop smoking weed. You got to do A, B, C, D. I'm giving him all of this. I'm trying to play God with him. You know what I'm saying? I'm trying to play God with him. So he agrees. Anybody will agree, you know, if they trying to be with you and you tell them this. Because we don't know. We just, neither of us knew that it was finna be impossible. But we agreed to it. And I try again with this relationship by moving back with him in hopes of things eventually becoming different. So we go back to this rooming house, and the process be quick to get in there. You just get them the money and tell them you want to move. If it's a room available, y'all can go and stay there. So we go back to live at the same rooming house. And during this time, you know, I'm still pregnant, and I don't want to have this baby in no rooming house. I don't want to have this baby because during that time, I made up in my mind that I didn't want to have the baby at a hospital. And I didn't. But I didn't want to have the baby at a hospital. I was like, God, please make a way for us to get an apartment so I can have my baby as long as I wanted to have a home birth. And so, you know, God was not finna let that happen. He kept blocking that door, baby. I brought a curse on myself so bad I didn't even know. We get a hotel so that I can have the baby in the hotel. We have this baby in the hotel, and he was my obstetrician or my whatever they call it. And that's what I wanted. I didn't want nobody there with me but him. I didn't want no doctors. I didn't want y'all don't tell me how to push my baby out, because you don't know my body like I do, okay? And if anybody want to talk about some birth complications, man, we only just now became civilized. Back in the day, it wasn't no doctors. It wasn't no laboratory equipment and all of that. And if you died giving birth, I'm pretty sure that it didn't have nothing to do with what they didn't have, but what they weren't doing. And so there was a curse brought on them from God. In my opinion, I feel like if you doing right in the eyes of God, he ain't gonna let you die giving birth. He ain't gonna let your baby. But if judgment fall on your head, child, it just fall on your head. And so we think that we got the answers for why A, B, C, and D happen, child. You don't just obey God, and then we'll see. But I ain't got time for people to be like, oh, you that was dangerous. You know what I'm saying, man? Let's talk about the dangerous stuff that we all done outside of what I done did. And now let's talk about danger. Because we done all put ourselves in dangerous situations. But what's really dangerous is different for everybody. That wasn't dangerous for me. I was doing what God made my body to do, which is have birth naturally. We continue to try to make this relationship work. I'm holding him to the standard of changing his life for God. I have his baby in this hotel, and back to the rooming house. I get the baby checked and everything, and he's fine, you know. I'm still holding him to this standard of changing his life for God. So, you know, now that I'm not pregnant no more with the baby here, we eventually, you know, slowly started back drinking. Because I couldn't drink when I was pregnant anyway. I was definitely seeing it as a blessing in disguise because I wanted to stop. You know, I wanted to slowly, you know, get back right with God. So that was a blessing. We resort back to our old ways. Drinking margaritas. We started out as every weekend that we'd get a few drinks. It eventually turned into every day. So we started to drink, you know, every day. Eventually. And this happened for the past 6 months. Eventually, you know, it led to one or more, because when you do one sin, it's going to lead to the next, it's going to lead to the next. Sin ain't never satisfied. You're going to get used to the alcohol, now you want pills. You get used to the pills, now you want that, now you want this. He had stopped smoking the weed, but eventually, you know, he started back doing it too. Because, come on, you open that door, you finna start back doing all. That's what the classic backsliding, classic backslidingness. You open that door one time, man, you're gonna fall in. You just gonna fall in. For the next 6 months, we will be continuing to fornicate and drink and start back listening to secular music. And so, you know, everything just went on the same playing field it was previously. Nothing really changed permanently because there was no change within our hearts. So, reverting back to our old ways or backsliding was fine with me, basically, for a good amount of time. Because I was still lukewarm myself. And I hadn't caught on to what God was trying to tell me about my life still after everything that I just told y'all about. So this is where I consider myself to become a version of what the Bible refers to as a eunuch. Because after I gave birth to my son, my sex drive had literally plummeted. Like, I'm talking about, I didn't want nothing. Like, I was fine just existing. And I still am. Thank God. I'm talking about, y'all, I want this to last forever because I have been able to give God me like I've never given God me before when my sex drive left. And this is a lesson in itself. A lot of y'all struggling with sexual sin, y'all don't realize how much of a grip it got on your life and how much of a wedge is driving between your relationship with God. Because when my sex drive left, it's like everything started to change. It was like I instantly woke up. And that's why I say, man, I became a eunuch. Because, and even though I know a eunuch is a male servant that was basically got his sex organs removed, I mean, I was a female eunuch then because it felt like I didn't even remember what it felt like to be aroused anymore. So that's when God started to speak to me. So as the months went on, you know, my body was no longer being driven by my hormones, and I could finally think straight again. Not even again. I've never been like this because remember in the first part of my testimony, I said as a child, I always had a high sex drive. I always was just managed. And so I began to want more of God and more out of life itself. So I was being blinded by my hormones all my life. I have been blinded by my sexual desires. And so one day God laid a burden on my spirit to fast for a week, but it ended up being 10 days. So he laid a burden on me, and I instantly out of nowhere. And this is in the midst of us still drinking, the midst of us still, you know, smoking, the midst of us still fornicating. You know, we just having a good day in the neighborhood in our eyes. And so one day God laid a burden on my spirit to fast for a week. Probably about 2 months ago, or maybe a little less than 2 months ago, because, you know, all this just recently transpired. So I fasted liquids, and it lasted for over 7 days, and it was because God had called me to do it. So I was still, you know, fornicating all the way up until the point that he called me to fast. So him calling me to fast immediately drove a wedge in between both of us, like immediately, man. It ain't no way you finna be in a worldly relationship, God call you on a fast, and y'all ain't finna bump heads. Like, it's just basically what happened. So I started to fast, and I didn't say anything to him because you're not supposed to tell nobody that you fasting. Even though we was living together, I still didn't use it as no excuse to be like, hey, I'm finna go on a fast, so, you know, we can't have sex, we can't do nothing, we can't. I didn't even do that because I didn't even feel it was necessary, because if God called me on it, then, you know, that's what I got to do, no matter if I consult with you or not consult with you. So I didn't consult with anybody. And so I started to fast, and this unbeknownst to him. And so he tried to touch me one night, and I said, okay, if it come down to it, you know, I'll tell him. It came down to it. And I told him, hey, like, I'm fasting. I can't be intimate with you because I'm fasting. And that is such a bizarre picture. This is when everything started to get shuffled around like a deck of cards. Like, everything started to just realign itself and reorganize itself. And it was very, very painful. It was very painful. It was very painful because we had been through so much, and this was just starting to crumble. The house was starting to crumble on itself. And so a day later, after I started that fast, I left him for a week straight, and I didn't say nothing. So I went to my sister's house, and I took the baby with me, and I was praying, you know, because when you fast and you desperate, ain't nobody got to tell you, you need to be praying. You need to be reading your word. You need to be doing this. You need to be doing that, man. You just know. After the fast, I went back to where he was at the rooming house. And he was kind of like asking questions about, you know, everything. But he knew that I was fasting still. But I reconfirmed, you know, that I was fasting and I was seeking God. And it was just basically like us having conversations about what happened, because there was like a shock that, you know, I just up and left, you know, for a week straight, and I didn't say nothing the entire time because I was dead set on getting an answer from God and figuring out what he wanted me to do next. And so he was kind of feeling like some kind of way because I didn't say anything. And I didn't give him no updates. I didn't give him no updates on the baby. I didn't give him no updates on nothing. Because personally, this situation was bigger than everybody around me, even the baby, even him, like, in myself included. Because quite frankly, sin is bigger than all of us. It ain't got nothing to do with one person's emotions and one person's feelings. So I was aware of it the whole time. So I was like, man, I'm trying to get right with God for my future generations can be set. Because if I don't get this right, ain't no telling if the babies that I'm finna have and come after me and the babies that they gonna have gonna be okay. So of course nobody gonna fully understand, what it means to really barricade yourself off from people in order to seek God, because most people haven't even been through that. Most people don't want to seek God for real, and they're not trying to seek God for real. So when I did that, it was kind of like a shock. But he kind of understood, but not really. I'm back with him in his room, and obviously I stopped wanting to drink and smoke and listen to secular music because I'm seeking God earnestly and seriously at this time. So there was a clear divide happening. So there was a wedge just being clearly driven in between both of us. So I'm still being pulled in two different directions, though, because I had not left this relationship and I could not leave this relationship because I had nowhere else to go. So I was basically just like stuck like in the relationship I was in, because I had no, and I wasn't finna go to my mama's house. I wasn't finna go to my friend house that I was at on and off, and I was gonna go to my sister's house. It just was nowhere to go. I was played out on jumping from house to house, and so I was like, okay, that's not gonna work. So I just waited on God to make a move. I'm being tempted every day during this season, because after my fast, God didn't just come through like that. It took a little minute because God worked in his perfect time, and so it looked like he's slow to us, but he's on time. And so while I'm waiting on God's perfect timing, I'm being tempted to drink. I'm being tempted to smoke, because he was still drinking and he was still smoking. He still had these desires. And so I was just seeing him doing this every day. Like every day, that's what I had to see. And I'm sitting up here trying to serve God. And you can see how it would make me feel like trapped, because I wasn't free to just say no to those things anymore. I was free to say no, but temptation right in your face. Like, it's like you fasting and somebody waving a donut in your face and saying, hey, here goes a donut. Like, and you know you can't have the donut. And so my heart is being led to seek God and get out of this worldly matrix, but I'm being tempted right underneath my nose every day. And I don't blame him all the way. I mean, he knew I was trying to seek God, but like I said, when somebody's not trying to seek God for themselves, they're not going to understand. They're not, and we don't war against flesh and blood. So I'm like, man, this is just pure deep spiritual warfare happening right before my eyes. So, I mean, I'm talking about, he was real deal like drinking. And then the fact that I left for a week, he said, that made him spiral out of control. And he ended up, a lot of stuff happened in that week. We both were just like this. Like, he went back to selling weed. He went back to smoking weed. He went to go get bottles, and he went to go to the casino and play blackjack and all this. When I'm sitting up here fasting and praying, trying to figure out how God finna help me get up out of this situation. During this time where, just freshly off of a week-long fast, I'm basically just stuck, because we in the room house, so we in one room together. So I'm just stuck like there. Just in the midst of everything, the drinking, the smoking, the coming in and out, because, he was obviously, you can assume he was deeply, affected by me leaving for a week, and not saying anything. So he was basically just leaving me in a room most of the time by myself. But when he would come back in, he would be bringing in a bottle from like a big tall bottle, like from him being out, or he'll only come in, sit, across from me, and just, I hate to say it like this, but he'll just complain about my new spiritual journey. Like he'll just complain because he wanted the old me. Like, let's just be real. He just wanted the old me. But I could never go back to her. And so he wanted me to be that older Bria, but I'm like, I can't give you that because she's dead. And so there was a whole process of grief happening on both of our ends, because I was grieving it as well, and he was grieving the fact that I was gone, but it wasn't nothing that nobody could do, because God had just he shook me up, and there was like this massive shift that I wasn't finna fight, because when God call you, don't play with it. You cannot play with when God is calling you. You better get on your skippy, because it ain't no telling when he gonna call you again. So when he's calling you up out of that darkness, man, you gotta put down the games, put the games aside, and go where he's calling you to go. And so, you know, my whole energy done changed. My whole priority list has been reshuffled, and things are changing. And so I'm being, you know, tempted by them big old bottles of alcohol that he bringing as tall as the sky. I'm just being tempted out of my mind, you know. And I feel like that was a part of God testing me to see, before he moved me out of that situation. He was trying to see, is she really finished? Like, is she really done with this? Because I'm not finna play with her. Like, are you really done? Do you really want me and only me? Are you really finna leave this stuff behind? Because we done been going back and forth for years now. What you gonna do? And so he was testing me. And yeah, I definitely wanted to still drink. The temptation was still there. The desires were still there. But it was about what was I going to allow to rule me? Was it going to be what God told me to do? Or was it going to be what I wanted to do with him that I've been doing? Something very, very powerful happened where... And this gonna sound crazy after all I just said, but I'm getting somewhere. So I did drink and smoke one last time with him. One last time. But this time was different. It was unlike any other time that I smoked or drank. Because this time there was like this inner peace. Not the inner peace from being drunk or smoking and being high, but there was this inner peace of me knowing that God was with me. And there was this inner conviction that this ain't all. This is not it for me. I'm just being calm, collected, and peaceful. And he's not used to that. Like, when I get drunk and when I smoke, I act out of character. Like, that was who I was. That was what he was used to, and I'm pretty sure that was what he wanted. So usually where I would overindulge, I wasn't overindulging anymore. He caught on to that, and it was like, okay, yeah, she's taking the fun out of this. But I'm like, man, God got me going, so I can't do this. But I couldn't say that to him, because, I mean, I did say that, but he didn't understand. Y'all gotta understand, I was tiptoeing my way out of this lifestyle. I was trying to wean myself off of this lifestyle. And so I was slowly getting more and more distant from the activities that we used to do. I am high, at peace, calm, thinking about God, and we on the porch, and I'm high and I'm thinking about the Lord. I just came off a 7-day fast, and I'm sitting on the porch, and I got my laptop in front of me, and I'm reading Matthew chapter 6 verse 25 through 34. It says not to worry. And so the passage is Jesus teaching us not to worry. He's telling us don't worry about what you shall eat, what you shall drink. I'm reading the word of God. So this says a lot right there. Mostly when we get drunk, not mostly, when you get drunk and when you get high, we ain't worried about reading the word of God. We ain't worried about hearing. You might get away with being able to talk about them, but ain't nobody reading the word of God while they drunk and they high. So clearly there was something going on in my spirit, man, that was not fully in agreement with what I was doing. So something that has never happened to me in my entire life happened that night. There was a man sitting beside me. I had never seen this man before at their rooming house. And he was sitting right to the left of me. And I'm talking about, as the tears was welling up in my face, and as they were strolling down my face, I seen this man sitting beside me. And I had never seen him before. And he asked me for my lighter, and I gave it to him. But the man did not use the lighter. He just asked me for it, and I think to see if I was going to give it to him or if I was going to say no. And when I looked back on the situation after it had happened, I felt in my spirit that there was an angel that was sitting beside me and who was testing me to see what I was going to do and what I was going to say and my whereabouts. And so it didn't register to me until after the situation. When I was sitting there and he asked me for my lighter, I didn't say, oh, this is an angel. But afterwards, something registered in my spirit that I had never, that man, and his whole look was just, he didn't look like he fit in at the house. And so I'm like, did I really just see an angel? And you know, angels can show up in different ways. And so even the Bible say entertain strangers, because you could be entertaining an angel. It says something like that, but you know, something in my spirit just told me that was an angel. And so I was like, wow, God is really, he heard, and I didn't know what was going to happen, but I do know that that situation was supernatural. So after that situation, it was clear that God was at work. It was definitely clear that God was at work. So it looks like I'm going to have to make a part 4 to this testimony, because I was assuming that it wouldn't be that long. But obviously, you know, it's a lot that happened in my life. So I'm just going to put a part 4 out. And thank you for watching this testimony. It was kind of choppy, but, you know, I tried the best that I could. And I will definitely see you in part 4 of this testimony.